everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Parking Meters Folly Tuesday. Every day is Parking Meters Folly in the city of Chicago. The great Mick Dumke is standing by, the man who knows more about parking meters than is humanly possible. People call me, go, Ben, what about the parking meter? And I always say, just call Mick Dumke. I can't remember the year they passed it. Such a terrible deal, but it's a deal. It's just like, wow, the monster from the lagoon that just keeps emerging. Before we get to Parking Meters Folly, and Mick and I have been geeking out over this on our own for about the last week or so, so you're going to get to hear us in full fury. I just have to go back in time to a conversation, a recording I had with the great Ramana Hussein, Mick's wife, that occurred last week, and I got a very interesting letter in response from a listener. I'll call Beth, as that's her first name. And so Beth sort of took Ramana and myself to task a bit, and I think it's well-deserved being taken to task. And I will read to you the letter that she wrote to us, and then I'll riff on it, and then I'll bring on the great, the legendary Mick Dumke, the pride and joy of St. Joseph, Michigan. So here we go. Mick didn't know I could pull that St. Joseph's hat, grab it out of the hat. He's like, oh, man. All right, here we go. Hi, Ben. I just got finished listening to you and Ramana discuss Mamdani. I've been following him probably as long as Ramana. I enjoy her appearances and usually with much of what she has to say. In this podcast, you both admitted the key roles the DSA played in getting Mamdani elected. Mamdani joined in 2017, and both his organizing director and communication directors are lefties who knew the candidate well. I listened to both of them talk about the campaign on the podcast The Dig, where they discuss the work on the campaign in detail. I recommend listening. In particular, Tasha Van Oken, field director, is credited with engaging 100,000 on-the-ground folks who knocked on 3 million doors. Dang. And this would not have been possible without the wholehearted support and participation of DSA. Those are my 2 cents. Well, those are an excellent 2 cents, Beth, and I am guilty. I'll let Ramana speak for herself, but I am guilty of giving too much credit to Mamdani. And this is like a challenge. Anytime I'm talking about a movement where you have to balance the work of the people in the field who are doing the grunt work, who believe as passionately in the movement as the person leading the movement. You have to balance the contributions that they make with the contributions that the leader makes. And it's usually a once-in-a-lifetime charismatic leader is what it takes to get the kind of lefty change that we saw in New York. I'm thinking here in the city of Chicago. And, the great Harold Washington, you had an unbelievable charismatic leader in Harold Washington. And then there was this giant movement, a grassroots, and there were so many people that Mick knows, actually. So many of them have moved on, have died, I should say, like the great Lou Palmer, who was involved in the movement, Conrad Worrell. Mick and I both know Conrad, may he rest in peace. And so there were many people like Conrad and Lou Palmer who were involved. And then beyond them, there were people, activists that are door knockers and thousands of people. You're right. My point is that I'm maybe over enthusiastic about Mamdani. I think he's an extraordinary, charismatic, very smart individual, and he's put together his core, his communications core, the likes of which I've never seen in modern lefty politics. I guess you could argue that Bernie Sanders in 2016 had a similar operation, but I've never seen anything like this. The way they respond to things, the real-time events, with humor and compassion in many cases, his quickness on his own feet when he's dealing with a debate stage or on the street interviews. A very talented young, what do I call him? He's not yet a superstar politician. Plus, I'm just like fascinated by the whole dynamics of the fight he's involved with in New York and the ongoing struggles he's having in New York. And I always think about and contrast it and compare it to Mayor Johnson here in Chicago, and why Mamdani seems to be so much more successful than Mayor Johnson. I'm wondering, why is that? So yes, this is a long way of saying I overlooked completely, totally the people who were knocking on the doors. And we were talking about the success Mamdani had last week. There, I did it again. The success that lefties in New York had last week when they elected 3 lefty Congress people in races that probably 6 months ago you would never think they would have won. So generally people say, oh, Mamdani was 3 for 3 on his endorsements, when in reality, the movement is far greater than one man. So I am chastened there, and I admit I give too much credit to Mamdani, and I overlook the people knocking on the doors. I'm not going to say Ramana Hussein does that. I'll let her speak for herself. But I definitely do that. So shout out to all the door knockers in New York City who did the hard work. All right, Mick, I open with a mea culpa. Do you have any thoughts you want to add to that sort of before we move into parking meter gate? Any thoughts you want to add to the notion that you need a charismatic leader and hundreds and hundreds of people, door knockers in the field? Go ahead.
I think it's an excellent point. Appreciate your mea culpa. Perhaps the most famous social movement of the last century, the civil rights movement, was very similar, where you had, maybe the case study in this, right? Where you obviously had Martin Luther King Jr., who was the face of much of that, but so many other people who were literally out in the field organizing, who were, holding secret meetings in Mississippi and Alabama when MLK often would kind of come in for the big rallies. There were all these people who were doing a lot of the very dangerous grunt work along the way, men and women who were often overlooked. So we could go on, but I think it's an excellent point. And you're right, just about every movement is situated similarly. And for it really to take off, you do need to have some kind of dynamic figure, usually at the head of it, especially if it's going to be sustained. But got to have all those people on the ground doing the door knocking, the handshaking, just kind of trying to get a critical mass behind what you're working on. So
yeah,
great point.
Yeah, and we'll add before we move on that even the great Harold Washington, he lost the first time he ran for mayor, got clobbered. And this is 1977, and when he was running to fill out the old man Mayor Daley's term. So even the great Harold Washington was incapable and charisma alone to be elected mayor. It did take a movement to elect him. So, all right, enough on that. Thank you very much, Beth. Appreciate the letter. Let's move on to parking meters follies. And I urge everybody, when you're done listening to this conversation, to go check out the recent articles Mick wrote for Block Club. Well, they're all excellent. The opening salvo in his latest series, in the Parking Meter Gate, sort of lays out all the problems with how Mayor Johnson has handled this issue. But the last one was about the city council, quote unquote, debate. Was hilarious. There should be a sitcom about the Chicago City Council in general, I think, but at least a couple episodes on parking meters. Anytime they deal with the parking meters, they manage to make a mockery of everything. But not just the city council, the mayors as well. All right, Mick, I'll set this up with this. When I think about parking meters, and you can take it back to 2008, the original sale, I think there's three big objections that I can think of. There's three big reasons to hate this deal. And number one is the cost of parking. It raised the cost of parking in the city of Chicago. And I think most Chicagoans, that's about all they know when it comes to the parking meter deal. Two, they're the larger terms of the deal on how it's so favorable to the company that purchased the control of the parking meters. And then the process, three, which is the one that you and I spend so much time on, which is probably of the least amount of interest to the folks in the city of Chicago. I will say that. And yet it may be the most important, because if we're ever going to come out with deals or arrangements, be they for gambling, let's say, that's in the news these days, or parking meters, you have to have an open, fair, honest, transparent process in which you have faith that your leaders are objectively sifting through all the various issues at stake before they reach a decision. And that, to put it mildly, was nowhere near any city hall back in 2008 when Richard Baby Daley, M. Daley, cut the first parking meter deal and then got the city council to pass it. And sorry to say this, lefties, it was nowhere near, as far as I could tell, City Hall in this year when Mayor Brandon Johnson stepped in to potentially buy the parking meters. So that's my general view of things. And I'll turn things over to you to take it away with why was the city attempting to buy the parking meters in this go around. So go ahead.
Well, first of all, Ben, what everyone needs to know is that you and I have been talking about Chicago's parking meter system for 18 years. It hasn't literally been 18 years straight, but sometimes it feels like it. As I was saying to Chris, I had a dream about the parking meters a couple of nights ago. Wow. And that's really scary when this thing is getting into your dreams. So I'm I'm astounded by the fact that here we are. There's another saga in this, and I'm assuming at this point in time that whoever is still reporting on Chicago will continue to report on the parking meter deal for the next 58 years, because that's how long we have left on the original deal that Mayor Daley cut to sell the rights to the parking meter system. But am I surprised? Why are we talking about it again? Well, the short answer is we're talking about it again is because the conglomerate, the partnership led by investment bank Morgan Stanley that originally bought the rights to the meter system back in 2008, started their ownership or control of the system in 2009. That partnership wants to sell the concession. They use this term, the concession. They want to sell the rights to the meters. And in the process of letting people know they wanted to sell it, trying to collect bids, and now trying to push through a sale of their rights to the meter system, that has brought City Hall back into direct discussions about who's going to have these rights and all the revenues that go with them for the next 58 years.
Wow. And so is there language in the original agreement that governs what happens if the Morgan Stanley outfit wants to sell?
Yes, there is. And it's in legalese. It's not hard to read, but it is both particular enough that everyone seems certain that the city council needs to sign off on any sale of the meter rights, but yet it's vague enough that no one knows what the city council does after it takes a vote. Like, what if they say no? What happens then? That is not spelled out in the agreement. And there are ongoing discussions, including discussions among very high-priced lawyers about what could happen next. So the city is currently involved on two levels, Ben, or I should say over the last year has been involved on two levels. First of all, the city was involved because Brandon Johnson and his team, which includes both other city officials and paid outside consultants and lawyers, they put in a bid to buy the meter rights back last year. And we can get into the details in a minute, but the bottom line is we, the members of the public, let alone members of the media, are still trying to figure out what happened during the city's bid process. Mm-hmm. And then the second part of it is when the city decided not to go forward with the purchase of the meter system to get control back, then the Morgan Stanley and its partners decided to sell to another group of private investors. And so now the city council has to sign off on that sale. So the city had a bite at the apple, another bite at the apple to reacquire control of the meter system, pass that up, and now there is a whole new set of discussions and debates about what the city council's powers are and what it is required to do over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and so see that, ladies and gentlemen? Nothing is ever clear in this parking meter deal.
That is the bottom line. I just spent a lot of words saying what you just said.
Nothing is ever clear. Yeah. And so right now, follow this, Chicago. The Chicago City Council is debating whether they're going to approve the sale of the parking meters from one collection of rich and powerful interests to another collection of rich and powerful interests. And a lawyer employed by the seller is saying the city council has no choice but to vote yes to confirm the sale, which is so outrageous in and of itself, but we're going to hold off on that. Let's go back to the decision that the Morgan Stanley Group said. They purchased the meters for $1.1 billion. They purchased the rights to the meters for $1.1 billion. And it quickly became apparent that the meters were worth far more, estimated. The estimated number I always throw out is $10 billion. So it's an infinite wisdom. Mayor Daley sold an asset worth $10 billion for $1.1 billion, making him the worst overseer of assets since the Chicago Bulls' last general manager. And I've just been waiting to use that line for a long time. Is it worse than trading IO? Yes, I think it's worse than trading IO for nothing. All right.
So, an analogy that only Ben Joravsky is capable of sharing with us all, but it is not incorrect.
It is not incorrect at all. All right. So fast forward, they go, we don't want to sell this anymore. We've already drained enough money out of it. We're going to sell it for like at least double what we purchased for it, get out of this. So they found some other bunch of rich people who wanted to buy it. The city, unbeknownst to anybody, was, as Mick just got finished saying, they put together this team, with the city and its teams, including outsiders, to come up with a rival bid to perhaps buy it back. So let's explore that for a while, Mick. Number one, why, in your humble opinion, did Mayor Johnson not tell anybody that he was thinking of buying the meters back? Again, go back to those first three problems with the meters. Number three is the process and the lack of transparency. So I would have thought, silly me, who is just talking into a microphone, that Mayor Johnson would have said, you know, folks, there's they want to sell. We're thinking of buying. We're studying it. I got this team put together. I got this lawyer, Billy Bob, the lawyer. I got Joey Joe. He's my strategic analyst. I got the smartest people in my administration working on this. And we're going to have a very open process because we know you were burned the last time. It wasn't open. But he didn't do any of that, Mick. Help me understand why he didn't come clean and tell us he was thinking of buying the meters. Go ahead, Mick.
I have the same question, Ben. As you and I documented back in 2008, 2009, Mayor Daley and his team spent more than a year putting together the original parking meter deal in a way that no one else knew about it except the people working on the deal. And we were told then, I'm told again recently, that this is the way that financial transactions and deals, big kind of sales and stuff, this is the way they work, is that they work in secret. They do negotiations, bidding, and all this kind of stuff behind closed doors. But most of these deals do not involve pieces of the city streets. They do not involve public assets. They do not involve something that is actually owned by the taxpayers and the people who live in Chicago. And so, yet they use those same tactics both the first time and now this time. So to answer your question, why did Brandon Johnson follow the same process? I don't know, other than he and his people were apparently told that this is the way these kind of transactions are done. If you want to play ball, you're going to have to play ball by these rules. And so they were presented with what has alternately been described as a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement. Whatever it is, they signed something that committed them to secrecy on the bidding process for the rights to the meters. And this happened at some point in 2025 that they signed this document. And this is very important because ever since, we don't know when exactly they signed it. We don't know exactly what this NDA or the confidentiality agreement or whatever it's called. We don't even know what it's called, Ben. Whatever it is, we haven't seen the language for it. They refuse to share it. Yes, I'm the FOIA nerd. I've FOIA'd it from multiple city departments. They refuse to hand it over. So they say that the confidentiality agreement is itself covered by the confidentiality agreement. So the mayor and his team have continued to lean on this and say they can't really talk about their bid process. And by the way, they can't talk very much about the sale to the new group of investors either, because of this confidentiality agreement. So that's what they're claiming.
All right. And I'm going to say this in anticipation of complaints that will come out from Northside liberals. Northside liberals, I've lived among you for a long time. I know how your little brains work. And this is what a Northside liberal will say, Mick.
Well, Ben, you don't understand how the business world works. The business world always does things in secrecy behind doors. There's non-disclosure agreements they must sign. This is the way it works. To which I say, Northside liberal, and to piggyback on what Mick said, we're not selling one entity from Amazon to Apple. We're selling the freaking rights to the streets of Chicago. And supposedly it's an open process. And our mayor could say to the muckety-muck lawyers who are trying to sell the deal, no, we're not signing your stupid non-disclosure agreement. We believe in open disclosure, not closed disclosure, not non-disclosure. So you want to sell the meters? You got to play by our rules. And I said this to you, Mick, on the phone a million times. The rule breaker right now in America is Donald Trump. He breaks rules all the time, and then he sends his little lawyers in the court to win. And they win more often than not. Well, you got his team and the Supremes helps. But the point is, Mick, why is it that Democrats, they don't have any guts on anything, Mick? They're like, oh, the lawyer told me I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement before I sell the rights to the streets. So if the lawyer says it, it must be true. Help me on this, Mick. Why
I can't help
always
you.
play by these rules? Go ahead.
Well, I think the short answer is probably because they have just as many relationships with the investment banking and the corporate world as the other party does. And so they're unwilling to offend them. They're unwilling to break the rules that have been established in this world. You and I aren't part of this world. And so when we're talking about transactions worth billions of dollars, when I shop at Aldi, whatever, and I'm one of the lucky people who has a steady income, knock on wood, and all that. What I'm saying is these dollars and these transactions that these entities are involved in are way out of the realm of, it's just beyond comprehension for most normal people in America. And so why can't the city, from the beginning, why couldn't the city say, if you want a piece of our parking meters, if you want the rights to the parking meters, you're going to play by our rules because this is a public asset. I mean, yes, that probably sounds naive to your North Side liberals you're talking about and other people from the finance world, but I don't understand why the most powerful mayor in the country at that time couldn't have set his own rules if he's contemplating leasing a public asset for so long that it amounts to a sale of that asset. And I certainly don't understand why a progressive-minded mayor wouldn't come in and take just the same tough tactic and say, we're going to be involved in this, but we're going to find some clause somewhere in that meter deal that allows us to assert our rights as the lessor, the person leasing the meters, to set some terms for the conversation going forward. I just believe where there's a will, there's a way somehow.
Yeah, there's definitely a way to do this. And by the way, I just want to remind listeners, this is perhaps the most egregious example of claiming a non-disclosure agreement prevents the public knowing what the public should know since Mayor Rahm's infamous non-disclosure agreement that he signed with Amazon, which brought out one of the great quotes of all time. Some mucking muck who worked for Rahm, I think it was told Franz Spielman of the Sun-Times. She was pressing him for details on this deal. We're Rauner and Rahm. We're turning over huge chunks of the city to Amazon. Take it, please, whatever. We want you here so bad. And I think it was Fran. If it was another reporter, I apologize. Said, what are the terms of this deal? And the muckety muck in City Hall, some guy that Rahm hired, said, what part of non-disclosure agreement don't you understand? It's just so classic snide. I'll tell you the part I don't understand. Why you dummies signed it. That's the part I don't understand, okay? Help me out of that, North Side liberals. All right, Mick. So for whatever reason, Mayor Johnson and his lawyers, his dream team of advisors that he put together, which included a lawyer from a law firm that was on the other side of the deal, right? Am I right about that, Mick?
That is correct. It involved the lawyers from Catton, Much, and Rosenman, the law firm that advised, the primary law firm that advised and helped the city write up the deal back in 2008. One of the same attorneys who worked on it back then was brought in. I know this because I sent in a bunch of FOIAs, and while they blacked out all the records that they did finally cough up, they blacked out like 56 pages of emails that I asked for. I got the emails, Ben. I could see who sent them and who received the emails, but the contents of the messages were almost all redacted. Just big black splotches on the documents so that I could not read them. But I could see that who some of the people were included on the conversation. And so that's how I know that they brought Catton, Muton, Rosenman back to help them out with this deal once again.
I can't remember. Mick, help me out. Your memory's better than mine. Is that the law firm that a certain former mayor of the city of Chicago went to work for after he left City Hall?
That is correct. Mayor Daley and his chief spokesperson both went to work for the law firm after he left office, the same law firm. They were paid $663,000 for their work on the original meter deal. And I don't yet know how much they were paid for their work on this one.
Okay, so this is the dream team that Mayor Johnson put together to help advise him on whether he wanted to buy the meters. And they decided, the dream team, in its infinite wisdom, that they were going to put in a bid. They didn't tell anybody. One more time, people, you didn't know any of this was going on. You didn't know the meters were for sale. I like to keep you guys in the dark, okay? Because, you guys muck it all up with your questions, particularly intrusive reporters like Mick Dumke. So the dream team comes together, the smartest minds that Mayor Johnson could find to advise him on the parking meter deal. And they come out with a proposal. I'm sorry. I was like, this really is something the Bulls would do. They come up with a proposal to buy the meters back. Follow me on this, ladies and gentlemen, including you Northside liberals who love corporations so much. We sold the meters for $1.1 billion. Now, 18 years later, we come back with a proposal to buy them back for $3.3 billion. The next bid was, I believe, $2.5 billion. Mick, please explain to me how the dream team of advisors put together by Mayor Johnson, including the brightest, smartest minds in the corporate legal community of Chicago, could come up with a bid that was, hold on, let me do the math, Mick. And I did go to Evanston High School. $800 million more than the next bidder. Help me. How could the dream team come in with such a high bid? Go ahead.
I wish I could tell you, but their analyses and calculations for coming up with that number have been, you guessed it, kept confidential. They will not release them, claiming that they were preliminary and they're covered by this NDO/confidentiality agreement. What we do know is that we only know this information, Ben, because it was blurted out during a city council hearing last week. So they wouldn't talk about the specifics. By they, I mean the Mayor Johnson, he would not talk about the specifics of their bid, how they got to the point of offering a bid, what analysis was done, what number they actually put forward, and then why they decided to walk away from it. They really didn't explain any of this. In January, Mayor Johnson, a couple news stories came out, word leaked that the city was interested in buying the meter rights back. And then Mayor Johnson came out and gave a statement at a press conference where he said, it's true, we looked into it, but it was going to cost us many billions more than the original deal, than the amount in the original deal. And essentially that I didn't think it was worth the cost. It would indebt us. We just decided it wasn't responsible to go forward. And that was it. That was pretty much all that he said. There were some other leaks where the number 3 billion was shared with some reporters. So the number 3 billion was out there, but no other details until last week when there's a city council hearing. Again, people, hold on here, try to keep track of this mess, where there's a city council hearing about the other group of private investors that wants to buy the system from Morgan Stanley. During this hearing, an executive with this new group called Stone Peak, a guy by the name of James Wiper, sat there during the city council hearing, and as city officials kind of prattled on, giving their legalese for why they couldn't say much about this whole thing, he started just blurting stuff out. And one of the things he blurted out was, oh, I know what the city offered. I think it was about $3.3 billion. Oh, really, Mr. Wiper? Well, how much did you bid? Well, we bid about $2.5 billion. So that's how the two top bids were revealed. They weren't revealed through any kind of FOIA. They weren't revealed through a press conference from the mayor. They were revealed by an impatient executive at an investment group that wants to take control of the meters. And so it was in his interest to try to appease alders and give them a little piece of info that would get him on the good side of the council so he could get his deal to go through.
Yeah, I'm going to add a little to that. And I learned this by reading Mick Dumke's article. So it's not like I knew this without Mick. So the funny thing about that exchange, follow me in this. The member of the mayor's dream team, let's not forget the dream team, okay, who was called before the city council to explain the city's point of view, when asked this question, said, I can't release the information you seek because of the non-disclosure agreement. Okay, the same non-disclosure agreement, by the way, that they won't even share with Mick Dumke when he filed a FOIA. He said, I can't do it. We got this non-disclosure agreement. I'm just got to keep you in the dark. That's just the way it works. Right, Northside liberals who love corporations so much. And so he said that. And oh boy, the investment bro, what was his name again? The Wiper.
James Wiper, yeah.
What's the name of the group? What's the name of the group?
Stone Peak. They're based in New York. Yeah.
Okay, Stone Peak. Stone Peak. He's like, the investment bro, because he does look like a bro. I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm dealing in social stereotypes, so I humbly apologize to all my bro friends. But this dude looks straight up bro. Like, dude, man, I got no problem. I'll break the confidentiality. Confidentiality, what? And the lawyer from the city, the dream team, is like, habita. We habita.
That is an accurate quote. Yes.
We get more honesty and openness from investment bro than we get from the dream team, Mick. I mean, come on, Chicago. You were so clueless. What a city. Sorry, Mick. I'm sorry. Am I being unfair to the Johnson administration and their dream team when I disclaim this situation where the investment bro is more open than the city's dream team? Go ahead, Mick. Defend the mayor and his dream team.
I can't, because the investment bro, Mr. Wiper, as well as someone from the Morgan Stanley group that currently controls the meter rights, both said they had already tried to lift the waiver agreement. They tried to waive the confidentiality agreement. So they were saying it's not even in effect anymore. And then the city lawyer came back and said, well, the documentation isn't very clear. And Mr. Wiper jumps in and says, I'll sign it right now, right here. I'll sign the papers. So thus undermining the mayor's entire argument for why he and his people can't reveal information about this whole bidding process. The guy's saying live in a public hearing before members of the city council's finance committee, it's lifted. And if you don't think it's lifted, I'll lift it again.
Oh my God. No, we can't lift it. All right. So my guess, and it's just a guess, is that the reason the mayor and his dream team are trying to hide behind the non-disclosure agreement is that they're embarrassed that the smartest brains in corporate Chicago that they hired came up with a bid that was $800 million more than the smartest brains that Wiper and the rest of the investment bros hired. So that's my guess, Mick, because again, no one's telling me, no one's like calling me up and go, Ben, here's what really happened. Is that, what's your opinion? Why are they hiding behind a non-disclosure agreement that Wiper is throwing away? Go ahead.
I don't know. And I'm not trying to be coy or avoid your question, Ben. I literally think there are pieces of information here that are missing. I think that the current chronology that's public just is inadequate. It doesn't explain everything that went on. So the difference, maybe they were embarrassed, but also, I guess in their defense, let's look at the fact that valuations of this system have ranged from about $1 billion to almost $3.5 billion over the years. And so these are all people who are experts in finance. They are experts in making projections of the future value of a current asset. And yet all of their so-called informed expert analysis ends up to scribbles on a cocktail napkin. I mean, I really am not trying to disrespect them, but I am trying to point out the fact that it's all over the place. Nobody knows what this system is going to be worth in 50 years. Nobody knows what it's going to be worth in 20 years, let alone 50 or 58 years. And so you have very smart people ranging in billions of dollars, $2 billion, $2.5 billion range in what the system is worth at different points in time. And that to me is the takeaway, is that, this is why the city ended up getting fleeced in this deal from the beginning, is because even if they brought in good people, there's really no good way to know what the value of this system is going to be that far down the line, because no one's ever done it before. There's not an open marketplace. If you're a capitalist, prices are set on the marketplace. Prices are set by supply and demand, right? I mean, I took economics back in the day, Ben. This is what I remember about it, supply and demand. So what's the supply and demand for a street parking system 7.5 decades in the future, or 6 decades in the future? Who knows? So I think that along with the secrecy is why we're in the fix we're in.
Yeah. Well, if we're going to have a hearing, other than for pure entertainment value, which was pretty entertaining. So if we're just, aside from the antics of the alderman, I would say this would be a great reason to have the meter, a hearing, on the meter. And that is to say, why is it, City of Chicago, that you came in with your bid $800 million more than the other guy? And the second question, other guy, why were you so confident that you could win with a bid that was so much lower than the city's? And there's a part of me, Mick, I have no proof of this whatsoever. There's a part of me that I have a hard time believing that the other bidders didn't know what the city's bid was. And I got no proof of that, Mick. And I know you're going to say, Ben, it's a closed system, it's a secret system. Nobody knows any. I'm like, yeah, it is secret. That's for sure. To me, that there's such a staggering gap between what the the investment bros in New York put together and what the city put together. And the investment bros put that out there, Mick, knowing that they were $800 million below what the city did. Actually, I do not know that they knew that. But these are the kinds of things I would like to hear in an open public meeting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, what did they know and when did they know it? Those are the classic questions for any kind of political secrecy that results in a debacle, whether it's Watergate or what we're dealing with now locally at the city of Chicago. And I don't have the answers to those questions, but we do know that it wasn't the city that announced its bid last week. It was a rival bidder who apparently, I don't think the city shared their documents with him. He alluded to the fact that he found that information out through investment circle intelligence. So these are all supposed to be bound by confidentiality agreements, yet the information was floating out there somewhere.
That's right? My point.
At some point in time. And then, not to complicate matters or make our heads explode, but there was apparently some period of time between when Morgan Stanley signed paperwork for a sale with Stone Peak. Between that time, which was at the end of December, and sometime in the middle of January, the city still had one last chance to go forward with its bid. Probably because, Morgan Stanley was still waiting to see if they could collect an extra $800 million out of the deal. But I if this was a pure bidding process, total secrecy, the top bidder drops out, then why don't you immediately go to the second bidder? But apparently there was some sort of interim period, cooling off period, last chance period where the city still could have gotten into it, still could have gone forward and then decided not to. And I just don't know much of it at all about that. I don't think anybody else does, but that's what we learned from some of the outlines of the chronology that came out in the meeting last week that we still need more answers to, Ben. Yeah. Every time we get answers, we have more questions on this thing.
All right. So let me just say this. I've been really giving the mayor and his dream team a hard time. In my humble opinion, the city council, how do I articulate this, Mick, to say exactly what, are so fraudulent in the way they're acting right now. And the one guy I can say is at least consistent. Young Scotty Wagasback from the 32nd Ward. He voted against the Mayor Daley parking meter, and he was a wee lad of an alderman back in his days when he was sort of a firebrand of sorts. And now, as he's a more mature alderman.
A veteran, yes.
A veteran, Scotty. Yes, that looks like some gray in that hair. That he's still against the parking meter, and he's a vociferous opponent of Mayor Johnson. He's sort of joined the other group. But Mick, there's aldermen in that council who, at least one that I could think of, voted for the original Mayor Daley deal, and now they're standing up there like acting like they're the second coming of Leon Dupre. And that they just want reform. They just want openness. And you guys are so fraudulent, in my humble opinion, on this point, because I know if it's Mayor Mendoza running the show, or Mayor Giannoulias running the show, or Mayor Quigley running the show, you will not, this is me speaking, not Mick, you will not be so loud and outspoken in your opposition to the all-powerful mayor. You'll go back to those familiar days of, oh, Mayor, you're so wise, you're so smart, you look so good today, Mr. Mayor. Or Mrs. Mayor. And it all kind of summed it up when Anthony Beale, the Ninth Ward, is one of the leading opponents to anything Mayor Johnson does, made the following comment, Mick, which I would love to hear you riff on. He said, we should not be so quick to dismiss a group that's investing in Chicago. He's talking about the investment bros from Stone Peak or Peak or whatever the hell their name is. And I'm laughing. If they're not investing in Chicago, they're like feeding off of Chicago. We're investing in them. We're literally giving them our streets so they can make more money, gouging us. And this is our alderman, Mick. They're investing in Chicago. Am I unfair, in your humble opinion, to Anthony Beale to chastise him for that comment? Go.
You are not, because Anthony Beale, yes, voted for the original parking meter deal and almost everything else that Mayor Daley put before the city council, and now is against just about everything that Brandon Johnson puts before the city council. You know what? I like Anthony Beale as a person. I enjoy BSing with him when I see him at the city council, but his voting record is his voting record, Ben. And he is an example of a number he's part of a group of alders who are currently speaking out, standing up against Mayor Johnson on this new parking meter sale, but yet positioning themselves to vote for it at the same time. So if there's an opportunity to hang this whole thing around Brandon Johnson's neck, they will eagerly do so, but that may not have any real visible connection with the way they end up voting on the deal at the same time. It's wild. Where back in the day, the exact opposite thing happened. I don't remember Anthony Beale's comments during the hearing, the very brief 2 days of discussion, pro forma discussion before they rubber stamped the meter deal in 2008. I don't remember what he said, but I remember a lot of his colleagues criticizing the speed and secrecy of the deal and then voting for it anyway. Yeah. Almost all of them, right? Yeah. 40 alders voted for it. 5 against, 5 made themselves conspicuously absent. And so they went from saying this is a lousy deal, we don't like it, we're going to vote for it anyway, because they were so in bed and indebted politically to Mayor Daley. Now a number of them are positioning themselves to speak against this new sale and everything Brandon Johnson has done, yet approve it anyway. It's like it's like the flip side. It's like the yin and yang, but it all evens out to being one whole weird thing that orients around the parking meter deal.
Yeah. And to that point, there will be a city council vote ultimately as to whether to approve the sale to Stone Peak, the investment bros from Stone Peak. And I forget how many weeks ago this was. May have to give a shout out to Cranes, who quote unquote broke the story, or I should say was fed this story. Dan Webb, you know that name, listeners. I know you all know that name. A very prominent corporate attorney in the city of Chicago and a former prosecutor in the city of Chicago. It's hard to say this stuff with a straight face, Mick, is now the lawyer for the Morgan Stanley group that owns the meters. Am I correct on that? He's the owner.
Well, he's one of the lawyers. Don't act like they only have a single lawyer, Ben. They've got a whole team of lawyers. They've from the beginning, they've employed Dan Webb's firm, I believe. He's at Winston and Strawn, I believe. Is he? Or maybe I got that wrong. Winston and Strawn, a very powerful law firm. You know, former Governor Thompson was a leader of it for a long time. But the bottom line is, even if Webb is not there now, they've got the most powerful, prominent attorneys in town, or team of them working on their behalf, and they have for a long time. So you're right, this appeared both in Cranes. I think it initially appeared in the Sun-Times, Dan Webb coming out and essentially threatening the city council, saying, if you don't vote for this, the city may face dire legal and financial repercussions as a result of that.
Okay. So that had me laughing. Everything from the newspapers, more than willingness that to be the conveyor of Dan Webb's missive. Always right on time, newspapers. Anyway, some things have not changed in the city of Chicago. On the message, and the message is that you don't have a choice. You are literally a rubber stamp, and you may have no choice but to approve this sale. And that's why the first question I asked you was whether there's language in the original deal that the Mayor Daley and his dream team cut with Morgan Stanley regarding the sale of the parking meters, whether there was language that governed the process. Because if you believe Dan Webb, or what he wrote in his letter, the city council has no alternative. They're sort of like voters in the Soviet Union. When Brezhnev was on the ballot, you vote for Brezhnev or you don't vote. And so their choice, as I understand that letter, in his opinion, is that you either vote to confirm or you don't vote at all. And Mick, I would love to hear you weigh in as best you can on whether that is actually the case, that they have no choice but to vote for the meters. The meter sale. Go ahead.
Well, let's give credit to Cranes on this. Justin Lawrence, who's a really good City Hall reporter for Cranes, did report. He got a hold of some correspondence, and he reported that the city's corporation council said that is absolutely untrue. That of course the city council has they're a legislative body. They can vote however they want. And of course, didn't say this that I'm aware publicly, but said it in correspondence with Chicago parking meters, i.e. Morgan Stanley and their lawyers. So have tried to push back on that narrative. And of course, alder people, say what you will about them, Ben, they don't like when people tell them they have to vote a certain way. It doesn't mean that they don't do it anyway, but they don't like it publicly, make a show of whenever anyone tries to hem them in. I've even heard a couple saying within the last couple of weeks that, oh, we should sue Dan Webb and we should sue Chicago parking meters for threatening us like that. I don't know what the grounds for their lawsuit would be. I'm just telling you that did not sit well. Whether that, as a result, will change anyone's vote, I couldn't sit here and swear to you.
Yeah, I absolutely disagree with the notion that they should be able to sue Dan Webb. He's a First Amendment right to write that letter. I mean, if he wants to write that, he's got a right to write it. But the city council also has a right to ignore it or throw it in the garbage can where I think it belongs. All right.
I will say, Ben, I'm not siding with Dan Webb because I don't know. He's a partisan in this battle as well as a extremely experienced trial lawyer, whatever we think of his clients and positions. However, what we do know is that this parking meter contract is very favorable to the people who control the rights to the meters, i.e. right now, Morgan Stanley and their partners. So if there is somewhere in there language that basically, if the city council said no, it would precipitate some sort of legal struggle, I wouldn't be surprised.
I just produced
the whole thing is so favorable. But yeah.
If that's the case, produce the language. Show us the language. Dan Webb, show us the language. Brandon Johnson's lawyers show. So, Mick, again, we go back to the three things that are wrong with the parking meter deal. Number 3, the entire process is in the dark. And it's a huge, by the way, liberals and lefties who, for whatever reason at this moment, want to discard this as an issue. It's a very important issue, Mick. And I think you should weigh in on this because no one knows this better than Mick Dumke. It's not just that every time you feed that meter, the money doesn't go to the city of Chicago, so it can't be used to offset all the many demands that the city has, including pensions and including paying for teachers and police and firefighters and paving your streets. It's not just that. There's language in there that constantly forces the city to kick money, to pay the parking meters, to true up. What dream team cooked this deal up on behalf of the city? So, Mick, we're going to get to the case for selling the meters, even if at $3.3 billion. But first, why don't you just inform the listeners a little bit about some of the language that exists in the parking meter deal that Mayor Daley thought was a good idea to sign? Go ahead.
Well, you just summarized it, Ben. I mean, the bottom line is that we didn't just sell the revenue stream. We didn't just turn over control of the revenue stream to Morgan Stanley and its partners. We also turned over control of the parking spaces. So every time the city takes a metered parking space out of commission, it has to essentially rent the space from Morgan Stanley and its partners. It has, whatever the purpose is, whether it's for street repairs, whether it's for a neighborhood festival, whether it's for gas line work, whether it's for installing or expanding a bike lane. If we take meters out of the system for virtually any amount of time, we have to pay the company rent. We have to pay them, like you said, it's called a true up. And this adds up. So far, over the terms of the deal, we have paid almost $250 million to Morgan Stanley and its partners in true ups. So everyone do the math. We have paid about a fifth of the money we got up front. We have returned to the parking meter company to rent back our own parking spaces.
Yeah.
To me, one of the reasons I really want to see the calculations and analysis behind the city's latest bid is that I want to see how much they factored in the true ups. So I want to see what kind of work was done to try to figure out what the future cost is of true ups, because people who are experts in transportation and wonks about this kind of thing, they say, the streets are likely to be used in a different way in the future. We're going to need them for driverless cars. You already can hardly drive down the street without being hit and trying to avoid hitting someone on a scooter. There's more and more bicycles everywhere. All these are legitimate purposes, legitimate uses of the street. Are we going to be able to afford the changes to the street infrastructure that we need to do if we're paying for it every single time we take a metered space out of commission? I'd like to know what kind of work was done around that question going forward, because I've talked to a couple people who know about the process of the city's bid, and we're convinced that even at $3.3 billion, that was a pretty good bid by the city, that we could pay that off over time. The city could pay that off over time without losing our shirt as a city. And there are people out there who believe that, Ben, who presumably have seen some of these numbers. So we need to see all that again. It just all needs to be made public.
Mm. And so this gets into the issue of whether, in your humble opinion, the city should have gone through with the sale. And again, as a guy looking on from the outside, on the inside, pure speculation, because I'm not privy to the secrets of the Mayor Johnson administration or the investment bros or the corporate lawyers. But my best bet at the moment, it was a political decision. I've told this to you before, that the mayor, on the eve of, I don't know, if a run for re-election, was cautioned not to have parking meters hanging around. That if he had shelled out $3.3 billion, that would give the North Side liberals even more of a reason than they already have, which they don't really have a good one, to be against Mayor Brandon Johnson. Sorry, North Side liberals, you love Rahm and Daley, and who shepherded parking meter deals through the city council. You can't turn around on a dime and say, "Oh, I'm against Brandon Johnson because he did what Rahm and Daley did." Come on, guys. Even you have to admit you're inconsistent. So, Mick, my guess is that it was a political decision that the various strategists, the mayors, said, "Boss, you do not want to have to run for re-election with this." And oh my God, all the Anthony Beals of the world and the Raylo, shout out Raylo, the Raylos of the world, they would be hammering him, Mick. Brendan Riley, I'm thinking of all the Johnson haters in the city council would be hammering him. And so that's my guess as to why he walked away. That's just a guess. What's your speculation?
Well, I will say last week, a number of alders did hammer the mayor for putting together a bid, as they put it, with money we don't have. So you're absolutely right that criticism would be leveled at the mayor if he had gone forward with it. I'm also was told that the decision not to follow through in the bid, not to buy the meter rights back, was made in the mayor's office, not by the financial team, not by the mayor's financial team, but in the mayor's office, which translation would mean what you're saying, that it was a political decision primarily. I mean, finances could have gone into it, but the financial team, or at least members of the financial team, were behind it. And third, I haven't seen the numbers either. I'm not a financial expert. I'm not a mathematician, but my gut feeling has always been that if the city could get full control of its streets back, that in some way, shape, or form, it would pay itself off over the next 50 to 60 years, whether through revenues or simply through opportunity costs. What are we going to lose going forward if we don't have control of the streets? Like I just got done saying, in the future, when we're going to need these streets to be flexible for all sorts of other vehicles and changing transportation habits, like, don't we want that flexibility? What's it going to cost us if we don't have full control? And so to me, again, without scrutinizing the numbers, just like it would make sense for the city to get control of this back. I put this in print. I think the mayor would be greeted as a hero by most people in Chicago if he got the meters back. I mean, that would be, yes, he would get criticized in some quarters for adding to the city's indebtedness, but I think a lot of other people would be like, look what he did. I mean, he said that he's trying to undo the damage from Rahm and Daley. Well, here's Exhibit A. I think he could have campaigned on that very thing.
Yeah. And this just popped in my mind. And we're going to tie what I began the show talking about with where we are now. The difference between Mamdani and Johnson. And I look at Mamdani's team, his communications team, whatever, the strategists that he employs, and the way they work together, Mick, and they're very clever social media promotions ready to go at the drop of a dime on any issue, including controversial issues, where there's a lot of opposition. Such as raising taxes on rich people. And so just imagine if he decided, you know what, I'm going to follow Mick Dumke's advice. And I'm going to be greeted as a hero for getting this onerous burden off the backs of Chicagoans 58 years before it comes due. And it's going to cost us money. But I could promote that. I could put that out there as like an investment in freeing ourselves and liberating ourselves. And I'll pay for it with the meter revenue itself. And imagine how Mamdani would sell that to the city. You hear what I'm saying, Mick? Like the next day, there'd be clever memes and funny little bits on the internet. And Mayor Mamdani hammering this point over and over again. And I know I began by saying I'm giving him too much credit, Mamdani, but I'm thinking a lot about how lefties have to operate in this current political climate. when everything's are lined up against them. And he's the model right now. Romana sent me a video that was thinking about playing of some city council member somewhere in Virginia talking about the streets of. Did you see that bit? I'm sure she sent it to you too. And it's influenced. Clearly, the video was influenced by Mamdani, even though the gentleman in the video is even older than I am, which I didn't think was possible. And so I guess I'm saying I wish this is another instance where I wish Mayor Brandon's team could be a little more like Mamdani's team. Your thoughts?
Well, I certainly think that their communication strategy could use a boost, and I don't say that as a cheap shot against Mayor Johnson and his people, who obviously worked very hard. But it's undeniable that he's got, at this point in time, he's got much deeper optical and political problems than Mayor Mamdani does. Now, Mayor Mamdani is in a honeymoon period for sure. But the whole reason he got into office was because of the media strategy you're talking about. Well, no, it wasn't. Going back to the beginning of your show, all those door knockers, let's give them credit again. But the media strategy helped immensely. He became known for that. And others, including Susana Mendoza, who in most ways is nothing like Mayor Mamdani, is trying to use that with clever little videos and something like that. So I definitely think that Mayor Johnson and his team could use a boost of energy and some creativity in the way they're trying to advance this message, because right now it sure seems like they have their backs against the wall politically here in Chicago.
You mentioned Mayor Mendoza, and maybe Mick and I will do a show on TIFs. Her contribution is appalling on the whole issue, debate of TIFs, and I think it's having an impact. And so, yeah, some of her videos, I don't know. I don't know if I would go so far as to say they're clever. Mick, you and I may have to disagree on that one.
I didn't say they were clever. I said she's trying to do clever videos. Yeah.
Some might say.
If I didn't say that, that's what I was trying to say.
Okay. So, there are those who say they would be lame, but her position on the TIFs is outrageous. And I saw State Rep was it Tarver coming out with an essay in the Sun-Times, or a letter to the editor Sun-Times, where she was showing some of the same flaws in reasoning and arguments. So you at least have to be. If you're going to want to be mayor of the city of Chicago, you have to know how the TIF program works. You talk about transparency and honesty. You absolutely need to know how the TIF program works, and you need to speak about it honestly, in my humble opinion.
And there are thousands of words available to you to read by a certain Ben Joravsky if you would seek them out. Yes. Be happy to explain it to you.
Yeah.
You can find that stuff. I will give you. I will needle you for a second, Ben. You a moment ago inadvertently referred to Susana Mendoza as Mayor Mendoza. Yeah. So I'm guessing that was a slip of the tongue or sarcastic reference.
No, that was not the first step towards senility. Or the first step towards senility. No, I was saying if she's got Mayor Mendoza is going to run the TIF program, like she says in her messages, we're in a heap of trouble. It's even worse than Daley. All right, Mick, so let's go back to parking meters, and I'll try not to go back to TIFs. Your prediction: the city council has this vote now, according to Dan Webb. They only have a no option, which is hilarious. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, just reminded they can only vote no. They can only vote yes to approve. They can only vote yes to approve. They have no other option. And we're not allowed to see any of the details because of a non-disclosure agreement. All right, you got that? Shut up, keep moving, pay your taxes, feed your meters, don't ask questions. And definitely don't ask questions about the TIFs because it's too complicated and you won't understand it. So, all right, there we go. That's our city council. Will they vote, in your humble opinion, to approve the sale to the investment bros of Stone Peak? I have to look at that name all the time. Stone Peak. Whoa. We're the investment bros from Stone Peak. Yeah, where you guys come up with these names, man?
Investment bros. It's pretty funny, man. That is pretty funny. Yeah.
Oh, man, I love Stone Peak. Or will they say, no, man, we're calling your bluff. We're going to vote it down. Go ahead.
I think they will probably approve it. I think that Mr. Wiper with Stone Peak was highly entertaining while also being seemingly candid, because I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just saying I don't know what I don't know. So it's dangerous to say that anyone's being candid when you're talking about the parking meter deal. But I think that I think alders liked him. I think they were very receptive to him and his style of appearing to just blurt things out in response to their questions, even when others would not. So I think he helped Stonepeak's cause, and by extension, the cause of the sale going through. What I don't know, Ben, is how hardened the Mayor Johnson opponents are in thinking that they can hang this on the mayor and that a no vote will somehow hurt the mayor. I don't know if they're still hard and fast about that. There's also one other angle to this I'll mention briefly. Everything about this is so complicated and crazy, but is that Stonepeak, unless they've sold, made their own sale of one of their holdings in the last few days, they own an entity that owns an entity called Omni Air, which has provided flights for dozens of deportations of immigrants during the Trump era. And so there are a bunch of some of Mayor Johnson's staunchest allies who were very upset about the potential of this deal going forward on the grounds that this company, in their view, is complicit with the Department of Homeland Security, that it's a contractor, or it's got a holding that's a contractor with DHS, and that there's no way they're going to vote for it on those grounds. So once again, the current city council is very unpredictable on given issues. I just don't know how the votes are going to go down right now.
Yeah, let's just break that out, because that in of itself just is a head shaker. The notion that they would approve a deal that is so horrific for the city of Chicago because they think, what's his name, Wiper is an amiable fellow and a nice guy, just goes to show you, Mick, how worthless the city council. I liked him, Ben. He told jokes.
Well, he also like repeatedly, I'm just saying the facts here. He also repeatedly expressed interest in working with the city and even giving them tips on how they could lower the true ups and things like that. So he threw several bones out there where if people are inclined to say, yes, we're welcoming Stonepeak to Chicago, it's a great investment, i.e. Anthony Beale, they could grab these bones and use that as a reason to vote for this deal.
Yeah, I'm going to ask anybody in the city of Chicago, do you believe that any investment company that's putting up $250 million, excuse me, 800, what is the amount of make they're putting up?
2.5 billion, Ben. You missed a decimal.
I missed a decimal. It's putting up $2.5 billion. He's going to kick back money to the city. Oh, here's a little part where we're going to bend the rules a little bit to keep, guys. If so, I got a bridge in Arizona. All right, and then the other one. Yes, the issue of it was hilarious. This was so funny. Where Wiper was like outraged, expressing his outrage at Donald Trump's war on Chicago. And it was almost like he's helpless. I don't even know how he bought it. I didn't really know he owned it. I want to get rid of it. I'm with you. And I got to give Andre Vasquez credit. The old rapper had his moment where he goes, what does he say? Now you're bleeding heart. Where were you?
I appreciate your bleeding heart right now, but you knew all this when you bought the company.
Yeah. That was Mike. It goes, yeah, I'm Andre. Woo. I got come on, Andre. That was one of your finer moments in the last year or so. That's out there too. For what it's worth, Mick, I predict that they will approve the deal. I think they will approve the deal because they want to make nice with Stonepeak, and they like those investment bros. I also think they think that it is it's a useful tool that they can use against Mayor Johnson. Now, in terms of the mayor's supporters, they may vote no. Originally, I thought they were going to vote yes, Mick, just to get this thing off the table. Well, we have no choice. The mayor's crack team of dream team and advisors says we have no choice. But I don't know, that Omni Air connection, Mick, it's a little, it's tough to swallow. So I can't see how any good lefty in the Chicago City Council can vote for this deal where you're feeding that company. So that's my thoughts. All right, we've got 1 minute left, and so it's not a Mick Dumke appearance unless I ask him something about rock and roll or sports. And I'm going to go with sports, as Mick knows, because I text him every day. I am just utterly giddy. I'm like almost like Anthony Beale is with parking meter companies over the Chicago Bulls, and I'm so excited about the Chicago Bulls, and we're going to do a whole show on this, ladies and gentlemen, on the Caleb that they brought to town, Caleb Wilson. The new general manager is a breath of fresh air, at least
he talks about the process that he's following. Mick, do you think I'm being over enthusiastic about my beloved Chicago Bulls as we head into the summer league? Go ahead.
No, I don't think you're being over enthusiastic because you love the Bulls, and despite your groans and your heartache when the management does dumb things or the players get hurt or just simply stink on the court, you're always going to be Bulls fan, Ben. So live your life, embrace it with joy, be optimistic about the Bulls. Are you over confident, or are you thinking that an upswing is imminent? I haven't actually heard you say that. So I'm not going to sit here and lecture you about being modest in your expectations for the next couple of years, because I think that will work itself out in time. I don't think they're going to have an immediate turnaround, but why not be excited when they have a whole new coach, front office, draft picks? By the way, their top draft pick, totally cool seeming dude who loves music. There's already been Caleb Wilson. There have already been videos circulating of him going record shopping, of him talking about learning to play the guitar because he loves Led Zeppelin and all sorts of other music. It's just, I mean, how can you not get excited about this guy, about cheering for this guy? I feel like it's been a minute since we've had players we were excited to cheer for. Like, no disrespect to like the people who ended up on the roster at the end of the season last year, but they were mostly temporary fill-ins and working hard to kind of keep their careers going, but people we couldn't really get attached to. So I'm excited just to have a new cast of characters we can get into. I think that's half the fun of sports, right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's a great riff, by the way. Live your life, embrace it. I wrote those words down. I'm going to get a T-shirt that says them. Yesterday, I was walking around wearing a Derrick Rose T-shirt and a Chicago Bulls hat. And Mick, you'd be surprised how many people came up to me. And I'm still in California, these forest fires. I don't know how I'm going to get back to Chicago. But people coming up to me in California going, oh, man, where'd you get that shirt? Or I love your Bulls merch. Or that hat is so cool. So I'm not alone out here, Mick. You know what I'm saying? In the world, there's other Bulls fans. But I am very enthusiastic. And you're right. I love that when Caleb Wilson goes, yeah, I'm in the Led Zeppelin. I'm like, oh, he's in the I sent that to every boomer I knew. You know, hey, boomer, look, you're relevant again.
I know the guy's like what, 19 years old,
man.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I love it. So fun.
Yeah, I actually I know he's not 19 anymore, but he's about 27. I see Kennedy. His name is Kennedy Thompson, and he does the best Led Zeppelin imitation. He loves Led Zeppelin, and when he gets on stage, he starts singing those Led Zeppelin songs. A young man, so. In its own way, Led Zeppelin lives. I think Led Zeppelin will outlive the boomers, Mick. Like, we will have passed the people who made Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin will have passed and left the world, and people will still be listening to Led Zeppelin. That's what we'll close with your prediction on my prediction. Go ahead.
I hope so. I hope you're right, because I love Led Zeppelin. I love Led Zeppelin's music, Ben. We don't have it's another discussion about Led Zeppelin's behaviors when they were rock stars. But, I mean, yeah, you can't go wrong with the records.
All right, very good. That's an important distinction to make. They're throwing stuff out the windows of hotels and burning beds. Come on.
God knows what else. Yeah.
God knows what else. All right, thank you very much, Mick. That was a blast. I knew it would be. Mick Dumke from Block Club. Folks, go check out his stories on the parking meter deal. Don't be ignorant. Don't be dumb. Don't believe whatever you read in the mainstreams. No, that's not fair. I take that back. But go check out Mick Dumke's work. He's been covering the parking meters since 2008. Good God. Covering the parking meters a long time. Thank you very much, Mick. I also want to thank producer Chris. He does an outstanding job, and he always feeds his meter when he parks. And I know Mick agrees when they say, hey, producer Chris, give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. Peace and love, everybody.
Remember, you can download episodes of The Ben Joravsky Show wherever you download podcasts. Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts. Just search for The Ben Joravsky Show. Joravv as in victory, SKY. Subscribe. Give us a review. But remember the rule, 5 stars only. Go find The Ben Joravsky Show wherever you download podcasts. But also, get this, Ben actually bought a website, and it's actually pretty awesome. It's thebenjoravskyshow.com. Go find it right now, bookmark it immediately, because not only can you find previous Ben Joravsky Show episodes, thebenjoravskyshow.com is also the new home for Ben Joravsky columns. You may have noticed something's missing in your Chicago Reader these days. Where'd the Ben Joravsky columns go? They're over at thebenjoravskyshow.com. Go read his latest column. He's been posting his columns at thebenjoravskyshow.com for a while now. So after you read the latest column, go check out the rest. There's tons more on the site. There's also the Benny J Book Club. What's that, you ask? It's a book club. Ben talks about the latest books he read. Was it a good book? Was it a bad book? Find out at thebenjoravskyshow.com. And finally, The Ben Joravsky Show is now an independently funded podcast. That's right. Ben's footing the bill. We love what we do, and we want to keep bringing you content like this. We'd be flattered even if you consider donating to The Ben Joravsky Show. This operation now runs off the hard work of independent podcast producers who kindly give their time to keep this operation going. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Again, it's thebenjoravskyshow.com. J-O-R-A, V as in victory, S-K-Y. Read the columns, join the book club, and find The Ben Joravsky Show and subscribe wherever you download podcasts.